the Phil Steele Plus Tour with selections for this weekend of Saturday, September the 24th. And it's been quite a roll now for the Phil Steele Plus Tour. The last 2 weeks, a perfect 6-0 last week on the selections. That makes them 10-2 the last 2 weeks. And even the quick hitters doing well at 6-4. Got the records posted there. Also got the big game of the week posted there, of course. Duke against Kansas, which we're going to break down right at the start. It's a game of 3-0 Kansas and 3-0 Duke. Definitely deserves to be right on the front of the Phil Steele Plus Tour. Now, as you know, I do the tour more or less just to let you know all the different ways to use Phil Steele Plus. Many of you have Phil Steele Plus. I don't know if you use it to its fullest, but this is what I set up for myself. I started about 20 years ago, the Phil Steele site with all the information, and we keep gathering it in. I've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars compiling this information, keeping it up to date. And I decided a couple of years ago to give access to Phil Steele Plus to you, so you have the same information I look at when I'm breaking down a game. And I've got all that here for you on the Phil Steele Plus Tour. So show you how to use the Phil Steele Plus, but also hopefully we have another big winning week like the last 2 weeks have been. Perfect 6-0 last week. Let's take a look at this Duke and Kansas game for starters. Now, the one thing I want to show you, and something about Phil Steele Plus, if we go back to last year for Kansas, they decided at the end of the year to take the red shirt off of Jalen Daniels. You get the individual stat breakdown on every player. He played against Kansas State and did well, and at that point, he was at 3 games. So the decision was, do we take the red shirt off, burn his red shirt this year? The answer was yes. He started against Texas, he started against TCU, and he started against West Virginia. Guess what? They upset Texas, nearly upset TCU and West Virginia, and went a perfect 3-0 against the spread. This year, Jalen Daniels, if we take a look at the individual player stats, naturally has been the starter for all 3 games. And what's Kansas done? They beat Tennessee Tech. That's Eddie George's team, by the way. He took over Tennessee Tech. West Virginia, they pull the upset in overtime. And then Houston last week, 48-30. So very impressive. 6-0 against the spread for Jalen Daniels as a starting quarterback. Now, the one thing about both Duke and Kansas, if you look at their last 10 years or 5 years, has been both play much better as an underdog. Both live in the underdog role. In fact, Duke has a record, if you go back and flip through your magazine, 32-9 against the spread in non-conference games. They know they got to take care of business in non-conference games. They're going to lose. They usually lose a lot of ACC games. And Kansas just 5-13 as a home favorite. Now, I was doing a radio show this week, and actually I was doing the TV version, the one we put up on Twitter with College Sports Now. So make sure you check that out each week. It's a lot of fun with Kyle and Tripp going through the games. But they asked me the question, when's the last time Kansas was a touchdown plus favorite against a Power 5 team? Nobody knew. Well, guess what? If you're a Phil Steele Plus member, you know. You just click on the last 40 years. I went through and looked at all these games. I was looking for a Power 5. It didn't happen last year. Here's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, 11 years, 12 years. You have to go all the way back here. The last time they were favored by 7 or more against a Power 5 opponent was 2009. It was Iowa State. They were minus 19, and they only won the game by 5, not covering the spread. And right here, this tells you about what situation they were in 2009, coming off of that 12-1 Orange Bowl, 8-5, and they were actually headed to a 5-7 season. It would turn out to be Mark Mangino's last season. Then they went through Turner Gill, Charlie Weiss, David Beatty, Les Miles, and finally Lance Leipold has righted the ship for Kansas. But this information is available on every team, and it actually takes you all the way back to 1976. So if you ever have that question and you're a Phil Steele Plus member, you have it answered for you immediately. But let's break down this game a little bit closer. We take a look at that Kansas has not been a favorite over a Power 5 team since 2009. They're a poor home favorite. And if you take a look at how the teams have done against FBS competition this year, throw away this FCS game here. You just take this one and this one, your average game grade. And the average game grades are invaluable. This not only takes a look at the score of the game, it takes a look at the opponent, and it takes a look at the yards rushing, yards passing on both offense and defense, and gives you the game grade. Now, the beautiful thing about the average game grade, there is no starting point. It doesn't matter who you are. If Alabama beat Temple 30-0 with a 500 to 179 yard edge, their average game grade would be 110.6. If Ohio State beat Northwestern 31-23, their average game grade with this type of stats being 461 to 511 would be a 95.2. So the average game grade has no bias, no beginning bias on any team. And it has, if you take and add these two together here, you're looking at about 102.5 for Duke. And if you take Kansas's 2 and add it together, you're looking at 104.5. So Kansas should be about a 5-point favorite in the game. They're laying 7.5 over a touchdown. You've got a team that's a poor home favorite against a team that thrives against non-conferences. I think these two teams are pretty close talent-wise. As exciting as Jalen Daniels is with his 7-1 ratio, look at Riley Leonard. He's got a 5-2 ratio, and he's hitting 73% of his passes. So you've got the two teams very close in talent. Daniels is their leading rusher, but Leonard's also rushed for 147. And defensively, Duke is actually holding opponents to 38 yards per game below their season average. What this column does out here, it says that they held Temple to 179 yards. In all of Temple's other games, you take this 134 and add it to the one, they're averaging 313 yards per game. So Duke held them to 134 below their season average. They held North Carolina A&T to 62 below, but that doesn't count down here. The only ones that count are the FBS ones. So they're holding opponents to 38 yards per game below their season average. If you look at Kansas, they actually got outgained by West Virginia in the overtime game by 82 yards. They got outgained by Houston last week by 8 yards. They're allowing opponents 42 yards per game above their season average. So I'm going to give Duke the defensive edge. The offenses are close. The underdog goes with Duke. In the big game of the week, I am taking Duke plus 7.5 over Kansas. Mark it down as your first official selection for this week. Let's get to the next one. And last week, as a quick hitter, I threw out that my Inside the Press Box newsletter had projected Rice to outgain UL Lafayette last week. And they were a double-digit dog. And what happened, Rice not only outgained them, they won the game outright. In fact, if we click on Rice real quick and just take a look at this game, at the half, they had a 207 to 74-yard edge. They're actually trailing by 1. Now, right here, collegepressbox.com allows us to post the actual game books from each game. So here's your game book for the game for Louisiana and Rice. You could see that there was a 54-yard interception return for a touchdown, which puts ULL up. They got a touchdown late in the first quarter, or late in the second quarter, to actually take that 14-10 lead. Rice got a field goal to end the half, 14-13. Rice would come back and win the game 33-21. You could see the stats. Rice started dominated ULL with a 27-9 first down edge. And did they outgain them? You betcha, 449 to 175, just like Pressbox called for. I go through each of these every week on every game. Yeah, the first week there was 82 games. Finally, last week there was 72. This week there's 66. But I actually go through right here and see each drive. And I in my head, play out the game. Okay, they went 3 and out. Then they went down, scored a touchdown. It gives you the entire breakdown of the game. These are available on every single game, and not just this year. But if you want to look at a box score from last year, and we'll get into that in a minute, you want to look at a box score from 3 years ago, 4 years ago, they're all in there. So thank you, collegepressbox.com. Thank you, Ted Ganji, for allowing us to post your box scores up here on philsteele.com, on Phil Steele Plus. Makes it even better. But as I mentioned, it showed one. So that gave me the idea this week. Is there a game where I have an underdog outgaining the opponent? And we're going to take a look at Utah State against UNLV. I'll have to get back to this one in a minute there. All right. We're going to put Utah State on the right because they're the home team. We're going to take UNLV and put them on the left because they are the visitor. Now, if you look at the line on this game, UNLV is actually favored by 3 points. So you have a UNLV team favored by 3 on the road against Utah State. As I mentioned, my projected box score. And by the way, while these plays are doing great, I put my best plays on Inside the Press Box. That's what I do each week. I take my best 5, 6, 7, how many of it is, and put them on Inside the Press Box. They're what I label as my best bets there. And then I look at the ones that just missed. And that's the ones I put here on Phil Steele Plus. As you can tell, they're doing pretty good, going 10-2. But if you take a look at the projected yards, even with UNLV playing so well this year and having the much better record, my computer is saying that Utah State has a 446 to 394 yard edge. So that's a good starting point. Let's hope we get a trend here. If this one wins, I'll go ahead and keep bringing one back on each week where my computer has the underdog with the better one. But cementing the fact, I think if you click here now, if you click on the opponent, you get the last 25 years results at your fingertips. And if you take a look at the last 25 years results in this matchup, Utah State has won the last 6 in a row, and now they're the underdog in the game. The home team, as you could tell out here, if it says win, that means the home team won. If it's colored in green, that means the home team covered. Well, that means the home team is 4-2 against the spread. Utah State, you don't even have to look at the score. You see the green. They've won 6 in a row. Yes, it's 3-3 against the spread, but the games they didn't cover, they were -7, -17, -14.5. Utah State is +3 in this one. And then the situation. UNLV is playing, they just played Cal on the road, and they played Cal really good. They delivered for me here as one of my Inside the Press Box plays. Thank you, UNLV, for that. They beat North Texas handily last week, but the game was actually probably a little closer in the final. As you could tell, they were actually out at the half by North Texas, 239 to 176. But now they're on their third straight game, second road game in 3 weeks. Utah State opened with a Connecticut win. They lost to Bama as expected, and they were shocked by Weber State. Now, Weber State's a really good FCS team, but they still shouldn't have lost that game. They're 1-2. They're the defending Mountain West champions. They're licking their wounds. They're at home. They're off a bye. So you have a team that won the Mountain West Conference last year, off 2 losses, 1-2 record, off a bye, playing with full vengeance against a team that's playing its second road game in 3 weeks and coming off a big win. So I like Utah State in this one, +3 over UNLV. My computer says they outgain them. They've won the last 6 years. A lot of good factors coming in a row, including the situation. This is a circle the wagons game for Utah State. And keep in mind, had this game been played in August, at the first game of the season, Utah State would have been a double-digit favorite, and we get them as a home dog here. Take Utah State +3, lock it in as your second play for this week. Now we're going to take a look at Indiana against Cincinnati. And we're going to put Indiana on the left and Cincinnati on the right. Last year, Cincinnati went into Indiana and came out with the win. And it was part of the reason that they actually made the playoff. They beat a couple of Power 5 teams and got there. Indiana's done well this year. Now, granted, last week they disappointed me against Western Kentucky. They only won by 3. The Illinois game, they only won by 3. And Idaho, they only won by 13. They're not winning by big margins, but they're winning. I like the fact they're keeping the games close as well, because they're a 17-point dog this week. You look at Cincinnati, they lost at Arkansas, but gave them a really good game. They did beat Kennesaw State, which is a good team. And last week they beat Miami. Did not cover. Miami never covers in non-conference games, but Miami covered against them last week. I think they were 22.5. And Cincinnati was only up 24-17 at the half, won by 21. The main thing I want to look at here, and I told you we've got the box scores that go back to last year. Let's take a look at last year's box score in this game. Bring it over here so you can see it. We'll go to the start of the game. In the first half, Indiana just totally dominated play. Let's take a look at it as we go along. Just click through here, get to the play-by-play. All right, so Cincy, punt, defensive struggle. Indiana then goes 50 yards in 6 plays, touchdown. They lead 7-0. Cincinnati punts. Cincinnati doesn't even have a first down yet. Look at that. Cincinnati, 0 first downs, 0 first downs, 0 first downs, 0 first downs. Indiana goes on a long drive, and I mean a long drive, but they get stopped on 4th and 1 at the 10-yard line. They were about to make it 14-0 on a 58-yard, 14-play drive. They get stopped. Cincinnati gets their first down of the game. Indiana gets the ball back, drives down the length of the field. They're at the Cincinnati 8-yard line. They're intercepted in the end zone for a touchback. They could be up 21-0 right now. They're only up 7-0. Cincinnati gets its second first down of the game and then punts. And then gets sacked for a loss, and Indiana takes advantage of it. So they go 6 yards in 2 plays. That's a short drive. So let's say that right now the score probably should be 21-0 Indiana as opposed to 14-0. Cincinnati gets the ball, and this was the key play if you're watching it. It's 3rd and 10. The pass is incomplete. So now they've got a punt. They've got 2 first downs for the game. Indiana's winning this thing 14-0 in complete control, targeting M. McFadden. Now what happened is McFadden was their best defensive player. He is ejected from the game. They lose their best defensive player, and a stop on 3rd and 10 turns into a first down. Guess what? They take advantage. There's not much time left in the half. They drive down and get a touchdown with 1:33 left in the half, make it a 14-7 ball game, take the momentum. And even as it was, even with that kind of momentum, Indiana had its chances here. Here, Cincinnati, they drive down to the 2-yard line and they fumble, trailing 30-24, or else they would have been winning this game. Basically, it's a game Indiana should have won. It turned their season around completely. They were coming off a 7-2 season. Their season went in the tank, and it highlighted Cincinnati. So if you look at these two teams, and you go back and look at last year, you say, well, Cincinnati won by 14 at Indiana. That's really not the case. Indiana outplayed them last year, just came up short on the scoreboard, and turning the ball over inside the 10-yard line, having your top player ejected. Since he had 2 first downs late in the first half, Indiana can play with Cincinnati. They're getting 17 points. Indiana's a Big Ten team, 3-0 Big Ten team that's been playing a lot of close games. I'm going to take Indiana plus 17 over Cincinnati. Lock it in as your number 3 play this week. Let's stay in the Big Ten. That wasn't a complete Big Ten game, but let's stay in the Big Ten. We're going to take a look at Michigan against Maryland. Maryland won for me last week as a best bet. Thank you, Maryland, for the Inside the Press Box. And one thing I also want to point out for you real quick, if we go to the philsteele.com store, you just click right here. When you click on the store, you get access to Phil Steele Plus. I'm talking about the rest of September, all of October, all of November, all of December, all of January. I think the Super Bowl's in February. You have Phil Steele Plus all the way through it. All the bowls, all the playoffs, everything. $99. The same stuff I'm using right now, the same stuff I use when I'm doing a TV or a radio show, the same stuff I use to prep for a weekend every week is yours for just $99. You have access to all my Phil Steele Plus information, the same stuff I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is the stuff I handicap with. You can handicap just like I do for $99 for the rest of the year. And let's figure that out. October, November, December, January, you're looking at 4+ months. You're talking about less than $25 a month. You're talking about less than $6 a week, and you have all this access. But let's get to this Michigan-Maryland access for you. And let's first of all start out with how this series has gone. We're just going to click on the Michigan-Maryland, get our last 25 years. They've only been playing since 2014. Remember, Maryland used to be in the ACC. They upset Michigan that first year they joined. But look at the scores since then. 28-0, 59-3, 35-10, 42-21, 38-7. And last year, Michigan had a massive game against Ohio State on deck at home. So you're thinking, look ahead? Not so fast. 59-18. Michigan handled that one. So Michigan has absolutely 100% dominated this series. Now I want you to flip to your magazine and look at the last 5 years of Maryland and look at how they've done against ranked teams. The beautiful thing about the magazine, we give you the ranked teams right there. I don't think we've got last year up here yet. We'll have these looking better, these 18, 19, 20s looking better, looking like this. But if you go back and look at how they've done against ranked teams, Maryland lost to Indiana, and just go back and look at last year when they played ranked teams. You could pretty much pick them out as you go along here. Ohio State beat them 66-17, Minnesota 34-16, Penn State 31-14, Michigan 59-18. Even Michigan State was ranked last year. Michigan State beat them 40-21. They not only lose to ranked teams, they lose big. And so if you go back and look at each of their games, Penn State 59-0, Purdue 40-14, ranked teams tend to blow out Maryland. That's one good thing going. You've got the series history where Michigan tends to blow out Maryland. And so you've got a Maryland team that's on a 1-10 ATS run against the Big Ten. Yeah, they're off to the usual great start. They always start the season strong. Look at this. Start the season strong, and then here was last year. They covered against Rutgers, but did not cover here. They didn't cover against Indiana. They were a bigger favorite. Did not. And even the Illinois game, they did not. So you're looking at a Maryland team that is on a 1-10 ATS run against the Big Ten, 1-10 ATS run against ranked teams. And something else I want to show you. from Phil Steele Plus. And we'll just take a look here real quick. See if I can get there. Let's go to the homepage real quick. I'll get you there. So we're going to go to Phil Steele Plus. And nope, that's not it. Go to my account. Oh, yeah. It's just going to take a second, guys. This is how you log in, by the way, when you're a Phil Steele Plus member. You know that already, because I'm sure most of you are. If you look at pass efficiency defense, who's number one? This is updated current. Michigan, and that's what Maryland does. Maryland throws the football extremely well. They're allowing 44% with a 1-1 ratio. It takes into account the strength of opponents. You could tell here, Mississippi State's taken on some pretty good opponents, 15.6. The strength of the opponent passer. In other words, Utah is only taking on 9.96. That's why they've got great stats, 51%, 1-3, but they're down here at number 28. Michigan comes in number one in pass efficiency. And not only pass efficiency, but if we go to special teams, Michigan, number one, special teams. You got number one special teams, number one pass efficiency, match up well, dominate the series. Let's go back to the team pages. Let's go find Maryland here. They're in the Big Ten, naturally. Put them on the left and add it all up. I like Michigan minus 17 over Maryland. It's your number 4 play this week. We just locked in 4. Let's go ahead and get to 5. Before I get to 5, I do want to remind you, if you are interested in the NFL, I got to be honest with you guys, I don't really follow the NFL. I'm a college football guy. On Sundays, while the NFL's going around, I'm watching college football games. That's what I do. I have a guy on Phil Steele that writes the Inside the Press Box. Did an extremely good job last year. Todd's going to yell the record into me in a minute from last year for Inside the Press Box in the NFL. And when he does, I'll let you know that. But when you click on the team pages like the Browns played last night, we haven't got them updated yet, but it will be updated today, the Browns stats. But it's just like the college. You get an average game grade out here. You get your yardage. It's all color-coded in green and red. I think the Buffalo Bills are doing extremely well so far. Let's take a look at Buffalo. They beat the Rams 31-10. They beat Tennessee 41-7. They're holding opponents to 133 yards below their season average, averaging 86 above. 22-15, Todd just shouted into me from last year. So you got to like that. Thank you, Sean, my NFL guy who writes the NFL pages. 22-15 last year. You got to like that. Meanwhile, Miami's actually allowing opponents 47 yards per game above their season average. Once again, here you can click on the box of the game. You get the complete box. You see that the Dolphins last week actually trailed the Ravens 35-14. But all that information at your fingertips. And once again, Buffalo's playing Miami. You can click on Buffalo and see that they won at Miami. They won at Miami. They won at Miami. In fact, they've won the last 6 in this series, so that gives you the information. All that's available for the NFL. I don't have any NFL plays for you today. Like I said, I focus on college football. I will start having some NFL plays up here for you eventually, but if you're a Phil Steele Plus member, have at it. You got complete access to all that NFL information for you each week as well. All right, let's take a look at this next matchup, and it's UL Monroe against Louisiana. Now, guys, I have to be honest with you. I have been handicapping football games since 1982. It's been a long time. I have seen a lot of football, and I have learned a lot about college football. And the one thing I learned, it was probably close to 20 years ago, is that when UL Monroe and Louisiana play, take the visitor. Just blindly go ahead and take the visitor in this game. And I've followed it for years. And let me show you the thing. I started learning my lesson, I think it was early on when these two were playing about 20 years ago. And I would have one team in this series, and I would say, wow, they are absolutely dominant. They should be able to win the game. And guess what? The visitor won and covered. It was shocking. Look at all these upsets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And these just shocked me every time. Back in 1999, I probably liked Louisiana in this game. They were -3 at home. Guess what? UL Monroe beat them. The next year, I was thinking, we got this one going. And just look at how the home team is done. Now, once again, there have been some wins for the home team. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wins for the home team. But red means that the visitor covered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 21-1. It goes back even further. I think it's 22-2-1 over the last 25 years. But I learned my lesson back here, probably this year, 1999. I said, you know what? The visitor does well in this series. I got to just start playing the visitor. And guess what? Look what happened. Last year, here it was. You had a Louisiana team. Let's remember Louisiana's team from last year, guys. 2021. See all this green? That's a lot of wins. Remember what they did at the end of the year? They won the Sun Belt. They beat Marshall, and they finished ranked. Ranked pretty good, too. They only had one loss all year. It was to Texas. ULM last year, look at all this red. ULM lost a lot of games last year. So ULM, with all these losses, goes into ULL as a 21-point dog, I believe it was. Let's go look that up here. Once again, we're just going to click right here. They were 21.5. And guess what? I actually used it as an inside the press box play last year. Blindly. I just said, I'm taking the visitor. The visitor does well in this series. I'm going with it. Look what happened. 21-16 was the final score. Simply amazing. And we put the halftimes on every game here, which I find invaluable. And so let's take a look at the halftime score. It was 14-10, 211-176. You can see for the game, ULM did score a late touchdown, but they were plus 21.5. Louisiana didn't even score 21.5 points. It was never in doubt. ULM got the cover. So now these two teams are playing this year, and Louisiana's off a bad loss. They played Rice. We talked about that last week, gave you a quick hitter winner. And 2 weeks ago, we talked about this Eastern Michigan game. I mentioned it in quick hitters. It was 14-0 at the half. So right now you're probably wondering, after 175 yards against Rice, can this team move the ball? Well, look at the second half against Eastern Michigan. Granted, Eastern Michigan got thrown off by the delay, but if we go back and look at a play-by-play of Eastern Michigan in the second half, or of Louisiana in the second half, you just see touchdown. And then Eastern Michigan scored a touchdown, 21-14, touchdown. There was a punt. There's a touchdown. They just couldn't stop them. Louisiana was scoring. Now, Louisiana's only a 9-point favorite. Last year, they were a 21.5-point favorite. So the line value is there. And once again, last year, I just blindly played the visitor. If we take a look at how they've done as the visitor at ULM, they've won 70-20, 31-28 as a dog, 30-3, 34-27. That was the one push there. 40-24. Every game they cover on the road. So add it all up, I am taking Louisiana -9 over ULM as your fifth selection for this week. All right, let's get to your sixth. I've got that. I've got some quick hitters, but let's talk FCS football. And I've actually got a pure FCS versus FCS game. They're putting lines on them, and I've got a game for you. We're going to take a look at Northern Iowa is traveling to face Western Illinois. Now, you guys are familiar with Western Illinois. I've used them here a couple of times. Yes, I've used them here a couple of times. So let's go to Northern Iowa. We'll put them on the left because they are, you got it, the visitor. You said it before I said it. All right, we're putting Northern Iowa on the left. They're the visitor. We're going to take a look at my FCS team pages here. We're going to put Western Illinois here. Now, the first thing I want to take a look at is last year. What happened when these two played last year? And keep in mind, Northern Iowa came into the year this year number 21 in the FCS, number 21 ranked. They lost to Air Force. Yes, 48-17. Air Force is a good team, altitude. They're playing the option. That's a tough thing. North Dakota, they lost 2-2. How good is North Dakota? Let's go look them up. Once again, you got all this at your fingertips, guys. You want to play around on a Friday night and just look through all the FCS games and find your value? Feel free when you got Phil Steele Plus, just $99. These guys played Nebraska tougher than 38-17. Nebraska got a couple of late scores. North Dakota was only trailing by 7 at the half. They played Nebraska tough. This is a good North Dakota team. They beat Northern Iowa by 2, and they beat Northern Arizona by 3. What's with Northern Arizona? Well, Northern Arizona last year is the team that beat Arizona. So they played 3 pretty good teams. That's a very good North Dakota team. How about Sacramento State? Sacramento State's ranked. They're coming out of the Big Sky Conference. I got to go to the FCS team pages. Sorry about that. What's Sacramento State done so far this year? They beat Utah Tech 56-33, and they beat Northern Iowa. But they did only have a 424, 403-yard edge. So they've taken on 3 really good foes. They were a ranked team at the start of the season, and they're 0-3. Does this team need a win? How about yes? Now let's take a look at last year. Last year when these two played, it was late in the year. Western Illinois was at full force. They had all their players there, and Northern Iowa beat them 41-3 with a 478 to 117-yard edge. You got to love that. Total domination last year. How'd they do the year before against Western Illinois? They beat them 34-20. That was on the road. The year before that, they beat them 38-7. You could take this all the way back. And once again, you could become an instant FCS expert back to 2010. Now, here's another beautiful thing. You have an FCS magazine in your possession when you've got Phil Steele Plus. Just click right here. What has Northern Iowa got coming back this season? Well, the Panthers get 8 starters back on offense, including their quarterback Day and their running back Williams. I love it. How about defensively? The only defense in the conference better than them last year was North Dakota State. Okay, that's a good defense. They've got 8 of the top 15 tacklers back, 6 starters. They might have the second best defense in the conference again next to North Dakota State. This is a damn good Northern Iowa team that won 42-3 last year. Now, what's Western Illinois got coming back? Well, we take a little look at this. Look at this. This year they lose their quarterback, their leading rusher, 5 of their top 6 receivers, and all 5 starting offensive linemen. Ouch. How about defensively? Ooh, they lose 9 of their top 11 tacklers. So this team that lost 42-3 last year to Northern Iowa, they're all gone. Northern Iowa, they're all back. So you have an angry, ranked team that's 0-3 taking on a depleted Western Illinois. And how's Western Illinois done this year? Well, they lost to UT Martin to open up the season, 42-25. UT Martin's not a juggernaut. Minnesota did beat them 62-10. Minnesota is really good. And then Southern Utah. Let's take a look at Southern Utah real quick just to show you how good they are. Now, I did talk to Delane Fitzgerald. He's got this team turned around. But look at last year. They only won 1 game last year. They did beat St. Thomas. They lost to Utah 73-7, and they beat Western Illinois. So it tells you a little bit where Western Illinois is, tells you a little bit where Northern Iowa was. And guess what? The line's 13. We're not even laying 2 touchdowns here, guys. I'm taking Northern Iowa. Do you think Western Illinois' home crowd is going to intimidate Northern Iowa? Give them about a 2-point edge. And also take a look here. If you're handicapping FCS games, remember on Saturdays, everybody's got lines on the FCS now. They are playing at a level, despite their 0-3 record, 78.1. They are playing at a level of 56. Even if you give them a 2-point home edge, that still says Northern Iowa by 20. They're laying 13 here, guys. Take Northern Iowa minus the 13 over Western Illinois. All right, quick hitters, and I am never going to complain about a 3-2 week. 3-2 is good. You're winning money. Quick hitters have gone 3-2 and 3-2. Doesn't compare to Phil Steele Plus, which is the Phil Steele Plus Tour, which is 10-2. And one more quick reminder on the Phil Steele Plus. If we go to the store here at Phil Steele Plus, you can get right here Phil Steele Plus $99 for the year. Keep that in mind. But let's take a look at the quick hitters real quick. I'm going to give 5 of them to you. We're going to look at Florida, Tennessee. Put Florida on the left, they're on the road. Put Tennessee on the right, they're at home. Richardson has 0 touchdown passes this year, but he had a really good game against Utah. The thing I want to point out here is this series history. Look at this. Florida is 16-1 straight up. In fact, if you go back and look at Tennessee being favored in this series, the last 7 times Tennessee has been favored, they have lost straight up 6 times. Might make the money line worth looking at in this one as well. So you have a team that's 16-1 straight up, getting 10.5 points on the road. And you might ask, when is the last time Tennessee was a 10.5 double-digit favorite over Florida? Guess what your answer is, guys? Never. Since I've been keeping track of the lines back in 1976, and you could go and look at yourself all the way back here, how many times has Tennessee been a double-digit favorite over Florida since 1976? The answer is 0. So in a rare situation, the last 7 times they've been favored, they've lost. Florida's 16-1, getting 10.5 points. Quick hitter play on Florida. Let's take a look at another quick hitter. And this is another series one for you. We're going to take a look at Hawaii on the road against New Mexico. Now, Hawaii hasn't been playing well, but I do want to point out that they actually have had a couple of decent quarters going for them. Put Hawaii on the left, New Mexico State on the right. You look at Vanderbilt, it was only 21-10 a half. West Kentucky, 21-10 a half. They had 183 yards here. Michigan, of course, steamrolled them. And then last week they beat Duquesne 24-14. Hardly a juggernaut, but this is New Mexico State laying 4.5 points. This is a team that lost to Nevada at home, lost to Minnesota, UTEP, Wisconsin. They are 0-4 this year. But let's take a look at the series history. And here we see that Hawaii has played them 10 times in the last 25 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 times. 9 times in the last 25 years. They are 9-0 straight up. Now, ignore this. They were minus 18, didn't cover, minus 21, minus 19, minus 20.5. They have been a huge double-digit favorite in almost every game. And now Hawaii's getting 4.5 on the road. So you've got a poor team laying 4.5 points. That makes me automatically want to look at the underdog. But they're laying 4.5 points to a team they haven't beat. That's won 9 in a row, and mostly by huge margins, and mostly as double-digit favorites. Quick hitter, we're taking Hawaii plus the 4.5 over New Mexico State. Now let's take a look at TCU and SMU. And the thing that stands out to me here is Fort Worth and Dallas are practically neighbors. So it's not much of a road trip for TCU. It's not much of a road trip for SMU when they travel to face TCU. Now, what would your takeaway from that be? I would say, well, if you don't have to travel very far, there's not much of a home field edge. Precisely. Let's click on this matchup. We can see here, and once again, this is color-coded. Win means that the home team won straight up. As you can tell here, the home team has actually only won 1, 2, 3 and lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're 3-8 straight up, the home team is. The visitor is 6-0-1 against the spread. We're practically talking about a cross-city trip here. It's not much of a trip at all. So the visitor has done extremely well. I like that. Now you also take into the fact that the head coach is Sonny Dykes. If we go look at SMU over here and go back to the bottom, you see that Sonny Dykes was their head coach. Now the 21 stats, these are all going to be updated next week for you. We were working on fixing these 3 years right here. And as soon as they look like this, we're going to redo the file and bring it out. You'll have 21. But Sonny Dykes was the head coach at SMU last 4 years. He knows the personnel inside and out. The visitor does extremely well in the series. Let's go ahead and go with TCU -2 over SMU as a quick hitter. I'm actually giving you 5 quick hitters today, so let's take a look at the next one, and it is Clemson and Holy Cross. Holy Cross, our next game we're looking at. It's Clemson and Wake Forest. Clemson is on the road. Let's put Clemson on the left, and let's put Wake Forest on the right. Now, the thing I like in this one, and if you've watched these teams play, Wake Forest has that slow mesh option, which is a wonderful thing. Dave Clawson's doing wonders with it. Look at their offense last year. They put up 41 points per game, 574 yards per game. I can't argue with it at all. But when they take on a defensive line that can dominate, and last week Liberty's defensive line did well, held them to 21 yards rushing. In fact, look at the yards. Liberty had a 437, 346-yard edge. Then they struggle. And look at last year's game. Clemson came in and played Wake Forest and held them to 36 yards rushing. They had 8 sacks. Clemson's defensive line blew up the slow mesh, blew up the offensive line, and just took Wake Forest out of their game. That's what Pitt did in the ACC championship game as well. So the matchup stinks for Wake Forest. How about the series history? Well, guess what? That stinks for Wake Forest as well. Clemson has won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 straight games. And look at the margins. 11, 24, and I could go right down the line. This 14-point margin in 2014 was the closest they've come since 2011. So in the last 3, 6, 9, 10 years, Wake Forest hasn't been within 14 points of Clemson. Clemson's got the defensive line that matches up well. Now you might say, and rightfully so, Clemson's offense hasn't looked great. I mean, they put up 41, 35, and 48 points. But if you're watching them, it's just not an awesome offense so far. But last year, who did they do their best against? They did their best against Wake Forest. 542 yards, season high. 332 yards rushing, season high. 210 yards passing, not a season high, but close. They had 220, and probably the reason it wasn't a season high is they ran for 332 yards. So Clemson's offense had its best game of the year against Wake. Their defense matches up well. They match up well. Quick hitter, let's go with Clemson, -7 over Wake Forest. And take you back to the FCS. I'd just like to show off all this stuff we have on the FCS. We just have complete coverage. You become an instant FCS expert. And like I said, you get an FCS magazine for free when you sign up to Phil Steele Plus for just $99. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you before we get to it, is I've got a little special for you guys. I appreciate you taking the tour with me. I want to give you guys a discount. We don't offer this discount on the site. I don't offer this discount on my radio shows. The only people who get this discount is you, my Phil Steele Plus tour watchers. There's a couple thousand of you. I love each and every one of you. Appreciate you taking the tour. What I'm going to do for you this week we actually dropped the price. College Press Box was $169 for the season, but there were 3 issues gone. So we dropped the price to $149. The NFL, we dropped to $149. Overall, went from $269 to $249. I'm going to give you $30 off that price. $30. Just use the code word 102. That's the record of the tour the last 2 weeks. I appreciate you watching. 102 tour. When you type that in under Press Box, it becomes $119. If you do that for the NFL, $119. Do it overall, $219. And keep in mind, guys, you get Phil Steele Plus, a $99 value free with your subscription to Press Box. So if you're thinking about getting Phil Steele Plus, why not just get my newsletter for an extra $20 right there? The code is 102tour. 102tour, an extra $20. Sign up for Phil Steele Plus. And by the way, if you paid the $99 for Phil Steele Plus, call our office right here, 1-866-918-7711. We will give you the $99 towards your Inside the Press Box. So just call 866-918-7711 if you want to sign up to 866-918-7711. Or you can, of course, go to the Phil Steele store right here. Type in the code. When you go to the store, get Inside the Press Box College for the season, which is right here. It's $149. You type in this code 102tour, comes down to just $119. All right, let's get to our final quick hitter, and we're going to take a look at this game's pretty attractive too. Holy Cross against Colgate. There's a lot of games I like this week, guys. We're going to put Holy Cross on the right because they're the visitor, and Colgate on the left because they're the home team. Now, Colgate this year lost to Stanford. That's not a bad loss. They beat Maine. Maine's pretty decent, and they lost to Penn, 25-14. Now, if you look at the Ivy League at the start of the year, Penn was picked 6th in the Ivy League. They got outgained 367 to 192. Yale was picked in the upper half of the Ivy League. Well, guess what? Holy Cross beat them 38-14. So they took on an upper half Ivy League team and beat them 38-14. Colgate took on a lower half Ivy League team and lost to them by 11. What else has Holy Cross done? They beat Buffalo 37-31. Last year, they beat they beat Connecticut 38-28. They are the favorites in the Patriot. And look what they do in Patriot games, guys. Last year in conference play, plus 284 yards per game. Their average win, 468 to 184 is their average stats. Their average win was by 29 points. So you might ask, how'd they do against Colgate? Well, you've got that at your fingertips with Phil Steele Plus. In fact, in 2019, they beat Colgate 31-10. Last year when they played Colgate, they beat them 42-10. They had a 473, 170-yard edge. Look at his first downs, 23-6. And if you look at Holy Cross this year, once again, you can look at the forecast. You see Holy Cross has got 9 starters back on offense. They've got 7 starters back on defense, including the Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, it's Holy Cross. It's Holy Cross this year. What is Colgate got coming back? Let's take a look here. Colgate has got 1 starter back on the offensive line. Ouch. They do have 6 starters back on defense. Holy Cross has more experience. Last year absolutely dominated this game. Holy Cross is 3-0. And as mentioned, if you look at just comparison stats, clubbed an Ivy League team, upper half Ivy League team by 24, lost to a lower half Ivy League team. And if you look at the average game grades, which you should on every game, and I'm talking FBS, FCS, everything, 85.4 to 59. Once again, give them a 2-point home edge, 61. That means Holy Cross by 24, and they are laying 14.5. So your last quick hitter we're going to use is Holy Cross minus 14.5 over Colgate. Once again, guys, I appreciate you taking the tour. Make sure you get in on this tour special. Use 10-2 tour. That's the record on the tour the last 2 weeks. Let's hope we got another winning week. I put a lot of effort, a lot of work into these. Let's get you some more winners this week. And thank you very much for taking the tour with me here this week.